Hello, welcome back to Grey the Gold Witch. I am so excited to read for you today. We are doing a paradigm shift reading on basically your old reality, why it wasn't working, and your new way of perceiving reality and how you can't unsee it. I'm going to be diving into what a paradigm shift is in each individual reading, but for now, let's see what crystal is right for you. So we have this crystal for pile 1, this for pile 2, and this for pile 3. So take a minute, meditate on your piles, or on your crystals, and I will see you in your reading. Hey pile 1, if you chose this aventurine egg, then this is your reading on the paradigm shift you're going through. You can see my cat scratched me, but it's okay. She sometimes needs to do that. And I accept it. So anyway, I wanted to do this reading because I feel like some of the most crucial and beautiful things that happen in my life, these awakenings to new perspectives, to new concepts, to new ways of seeing things, have been the miracles in my life that have aligned my values and made me see life in a way that's led to more enlightenment. So a paradigm shift is when the old way of seeing things, the old way of acting in the framework of your world no longer works, and you have an awakening or a moment where you see things differently. You see your perception shifts, and it's not only knowledge, it's also just being able to see reality from a bird's eye view, and that shifting, the way you see it shifting, and never being able to go back to the old way you saw it. And this is often a step in enlightenment, is this paradigm shift, and we all go through them, especially people who are on the spiritual journey. And yeah, I am so excited for this reading. I just moved to a new apartment in a new city, and I am so happy. And this natural light in my room feels like serendipitous. I just am so excited for this next chapter, and I'm excited to see what these paradigm shifts we're going through are, because sometimes it's hard to see them while we're going through them. It's whenever we have really absorbed it and implemented it into our reality that we're able to see it. It's always hard to see the forest for the trees when we're walking through the trees. So yeah, my plan for this reading is to look at the old paradigm, your old way of seeing things, the crack, what happened that made you shift your perspective, that made this paradigm shift, and then what this new paradigm, this new way of perceiving the world is. And then I want to use these archetype cards and do the same thing with one card each, and do it in a way where we see this from a different perspective. We see this archetypally, not just through the nuanced view of cards. So we're going to look at what this paradigm shift is. Okay, so first we're going to look at what this old paradigm is. I'm excited about this table. My apartment's kind of small, and this table folds up, and I can bring it out when I'm doing readings, and It's so nice to have intention behind this table. I don't know, it just feels significant that its purpose is tarot. So this is the crack that happened to fill in my lap. So it falling in my lap is definitely giving that this wasn't something that you were actively trying to have happen. It was something that happened because of the experiences you were going through. So let's look at the new paradigm. Oh, wow. This new paradigm is exciting, I think. I feel excited about it. Oh. Yeah, you're like, see, old way of thinking. I'm going to leave these cards out as the best way to optimize this paradigm shift and to see what power you're gaining. I think that these cards will be kind of the gifts and blessings of this shift. So let's look at the crack. We have the King of Swords, the Empress, and Page of Wands. Okay, so this is societal. This is how you interact with the world around you. I'm thinking about Hegel, how Hegel defined existence as being seen by an object outside of you. We exist because we are perceived. So this feels like feeling like you need to present as a certain type of individual. Not the perfect, but well, it's funny I said perfect, but the iteration of this that's coming to my mind is women feeling they need to have this beauty standard to be perceived by the male gaze. And almost normalizing this objectification of women. I mean, that's what society does. Look at models, look at influencers, look at how women are just constantly spoken about appearance and how we're supposed to act. And the thing is we have much more equality than we did in the past, but there's still these subtle, nuanced ways that we are still conditioned to act and to move through reality. And this is very heteronormative. I do think that this can also be looked at as how female energy responds to male energy. How male energy, we normalize a little bit of its power over feminine energy and its perception of the female body. And okay, I checked to see if that went off balance. Okay, so that's also a sign about the balanced nature of existing in the world. I think that we get off balance in our identity and the way we move through the world when we act based on other people's perceptions. And this is just really societal conditioning of having to be a certain way and also getting your worth out of the male gaze. I think this way of looking at things is very oppressive to identity, very oppressive to happiness, very oppressive to movement, because aesthetic beauty is so subjective, and these ways of looking and these ways of dressing up, the trends are all transient, and it's always like we need to do something different. And it's interesting because I'm looking at the Page of Wands here and the King of Swords. It's almost as though there's two types of male perception. When you're younger, you're having fun, going to bars, just having kind of sexual freedom, and seeing how that turns into this problematic male dominance. And dominance isn't the word I want to be using, because this is very nuanced and subtle in how we operate in the world. In some ways, it's very overt, but yeah, this old paradigm is pretty much, if I were to generalize or take the nuances out, it's this old paradigm is the patriarchy, and how the fun of it turns into the oppression and prison of it. I think it's balance. There's like enjoying beauty for beauty's sake, loving oneself, doing this, having fun. But then all of a sudden you realize you're captured within its walls. That's very interesting. So let's look at the crack. We have the Queen of Cups. We have the Ace of Swords in reverse. And the Eight of Wands in reverse. This crack, this fissure is coming through as growing into yourself, growing into the beautiful feminine qualities within yourself, this compassion and empathy and love, and these really pure, these really spiritual principles, and you wanting to interact with the world in this way, interact with everyone in this way, interact with people and animals and your work and just how you live life in this peaceful, connected way. And when you prioritize that, when you prioritize interior over exterior, and people don't understand it, it's like you have less of a Luna's licking or drinking water. Yeah, this fissure, this crack feels like you entering this fog, this isolated fog where you are principled and self-focused. And this Queen of Cups, looking at this cup, it's really acknowledging the preciousness of this spiritual water, this spiritual substance, this beauty in life. It's directing your life towards that rather than feeling you need to be this certain way. It's interesting because this paradigm shift feels self-aware, because you identified this objectification of the female body, of yourself, and you were like, no, that's not for me. That's gross. And you were like, there's so many kinds of beauty, there's so many things that matter, and you really focused on what was inside you and what was important to you. And I think something that has been frustrating is people don't understand it as much. People aren't used to it as much. It's isolating. Because it feels like, I don't know, like the bar scene, social events where girls dress up, and it's not like you don't dress up and do these things, but it's from a much more empowered place where you're not doing it with concern for the male gaze. You're doing it with concern. You're looking at this cup. You're not looking at this man. And the sword in reverse with this man holding the sword, it's not harmonious with this version of reality. And I think places you had connection and interaction and movement in the world stopped being that kind of flux of interaction. And what you've really woken your eyes up to is the way that feels harmonious, the way that soulfully feels beautiful to live isn't in line with contemporary society, with how media and even like classism and ideas of perfection. I was talking about perfection at the very beginning of the reading, and I was like, that's funny, because this is really like an ideal of perfection, and the perfection is subjective, and you choosing to find your own soulful nourishment, soulful fulfillment, and it completely clashing with these values in this world. So that was the crack. So it's so interesting. I'm interested to see the paradigm shift you live in now that you realize that your spiritual energy no longer aligns with how people perceive the world in this way. So we have the Seven of Swords, Death, Temperance. Okay, so what you see that you can't unsee opens you up to a whole new level of observing the world and seeing it for what it truthfully is. You see where people are lying, where they're manipulative, and you see at a very acute level people's intentions, what games are being played here, the metrics of worthiness. You have become a systems thinker in the sense that when you interact in a system like this, you look at motives, you look at whose power influences people. You're able to see it from that bird's eye view because you understand the falsity, the veneer, the illusion of this system. And it's as though you have decided not to leave this system, not to completely hermit away and pull a Salinger or Thoreau and hit the forest, but you've decided to experience it, observe it, so you can have more knowledge and more ways of collecting information, which that's pretty much the same thing. But this feels like you're kind of like a spy on how society operates. And this is really philosophical. I talked about Hegel And I talked about, I don't know, this is very intelligent thinking. And it's as though you are observing it to understand more and more. And you might not know what use this will have for you, what this paradigm shift with you observing things instead of living in this world will lead to, but you know that it's giving you clarity. And it's also very healing to the trauma that happened when you lived in this world and weren't able to see these power structures. Maybe you were able to see them to an extent, but this is really just complete awakening to it. And that's what this Temperance card is. It's like living in your beliefs, living in your systems of experience. And I think that's really following your intuition, your connection with the universe, connecting to what matters there, what really matters to you. You're able to do that and witness this. It's like you're a witness. That's a good word for it. And you don't know why you're witnessing, but you feel like the universe wants you to. I think sometimes in your spiritual nature, you wonder, you're like, I should completely denounce this. This is such a problematic society. Even me observing it is in some way validating it. And the thing is no matter what you do, it's going to exist. And you have the spiritual foundation, the basis to observe these things and not be pulled into it. So that's why you are operating like this. So I think something you're noticing is the rush people are in. And that might be something that's a little hard to separate from. And this is really just a simple, whenever it's too much, leave. Go back into your spiritual cave. Take a break, take a pause. Collect the information you've learned and allow yourself to process. So these were the optimization of this paradigm shift, the blessings, Ten of Pentacles, the Magician in reverse, the Ace of Pentacles in reverse. I'm sorry if you hear all the honking and noise outside. I'm on the second floor, so it's a little close to reality. So what I'm seeing here is the blessing of this perspective, this paradigm shift is forming a life that really fits your values, being able to live in this society, operate in it in a way that it doesn't limit you, hurt you, or make you run towards things that are soul stifling. You know what doesn't matter to manifest. You're not manifesting things that are oppressive. You aren't accepting invitations, opportunities that feel super rooted in this system. You're able to see them clearly, and you don't go down these rabbit holes that are limiting, that a lot of people do and end up suffering for. This will allow you to have what you truly want. Because you know what you want, you're manifesting what you want. You're not giving into things that are these traps. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, in A Woman Who Ran with the Wolves, talks about how there's soul traps everywhere. There's these things everywhere that are stifling to the soul in society. And because you have this acute observation, this insight, you're able to avoid them. This is so silly, but I'm thinking of like an apocalyptic show where people survive because they're really quick on their feet and they know what to do. And that's kind of the vibe you're getting, is you're not letting what unaware people are doing, so you're able to survive and thrive. What looks like success or what looks like ideal in this old paradigm was nothing compared to what you're going to gain. Because you don't operate within it, you operate with an observation of it. You're able to also just like really thrive in your success here. Because you aren't a part of it, you're observing it, you're able to move in a way that you are able to make the most of the system in a way that isn't going against your principles. You're able to act through your principles, act with morality. I, for some reason, wanted to say mortality. Knowing that this is life, you can't exist without these societal situations. And even though it's not ideal, you're gonna live in it and you're gonna experience it, but you can move through it as a systems thinker, not being a part of it, being separate from it and acting through that to interact with it. This is very like high level intelligence, interaction, and yeah, I mean, this is really a blessing that you're able to see things this way. I think it was painful. You went through pain in seeing this side of reality. But because you have, you're really gonna live a more fulfilling life. So yeah, now I want to look at the archetype cards to see this from a different perspective. So let's see what this old paradigm is. Okay, we have the mountain. The Fisher, Pilgrim, the Eternal Child, and the new paradigm is Gnosis. So Gnosis is felt experience, felt life. And the experience, and Pilgrim is exposing you to this experience. And the Eternal Child is someone who has optimism, who is able to see things through an idealized lens, and you're able to take these experiences, take that hope, and look at how people were interacting, and knowing it wasn't for you, and knowing that you could leave. Because the Pilgrim is able to move in space, you realized you can move in mental observation of this, in changing the narrative, in not agreeing with this way of life. It's so funny, this mountain card talks about reaching peaks in life. Kind of perfection, honestly, is the peak. And I think that this is a world of achieving a arbitrary perfection. And the card says the root of this mountain, what's really important is the gems within, this world within, and people focus on climbing it, but it's within that has a soul. And it's like you're not completely leaving this mountain, you're just going into it. You've learned not to climb it. You've learned that the true gifts are in it. And I think a lot of this has to do with life experience, through even experiencing different places and different ways of life. And your body, your insight, your intuition, your spiritual nature felt these experiences into this awakening in your mental insight. First you felt this, then you became self-aware of it, became conscious to your mind. And that's that paradigm shift. It was working within you, even though you couldn't name it. It was already a part of you. And now you're able to see it, you're able to articulate what's happening, you're able to express that. And you're just living closer to what life's about. You're more connected to life. And it's funny, the cards I want to end with are both nature cards. And I think you're just connected to the natural point of life, to those values, to living life soulfully and with true fulfillment. This is like living truly, and just this is the beautiful way of living. So let's look at the tree cards to see what comes out. We have Keeper of Balance. I was talking about balance earlier, and balancing your existence within these walls or this world and your own perception of life, and being able to act with this awareness and keeping like this balanced approach to the world so that you can have the experiences you want to have, see the things you want to see, and not limit yourself. So let's look at the rose cards, or these are flower cards. Delphinium. 23 and 7. For some reason I want to add them up to 30. So 30 might be significant. That's also 3 is a number of communication, of interaction and community and expression, and 0 is the number of spirit. And yeah, I think that's what's happening, is you are connecting in the spiritual way, in this way of 30, rather than being only tied up in 3. And there's nothing wrong with 3 is amazing, but there's a spiritual perspective you have here that is allowing you to have this. It's so interesting because 23 is a number of experience, of experiencing life, and we are looking at the pilgrim. And 7 is a number of personal insight, really personal belief, leaving collective belief. And that's just exactly what happened here, was experience encouraging you to look inside of yourself to see what was true to you. Different experiences in your life conflicting with each other. These truths you're told not adding up. So you going in search of the truth that you really identify with. So yeah, pile 1, this was really cool. I feel really lucky to be able to do these readings, and I can't wait to see you again. Okay? Take care. Bye. Hey, Pile 2, this is your reading on your paradigm shift. Before I started your reading, I got a few messages. I think ancestor is here, a female ancestor is here supporting you at this time in your life. It felt like a great grandmother or great great grandmother or someone who was involved in spiritual practice. So and also if you didn't know that about your ancestors, you did have ancestors involved with spiritual practice. So the paradigm shift we're looking at, a paradigm shift is basically your old way of seeing things no longer works, and you see things in a different way and you're never able to unsee it. I'm kind of thinking, what I was thinking about, a good iteration of this is the Matrix. When you take the red pill, you see the world as it is and you can't unsee it. And the blue pill is staying in ignorance. So I was telling Pile 1, I think these paradigm shifts that we have as spiritual people help us in our enlightenment. They activate that knowledge in us. And yeah, paradigm shifts are just really an important part of our spiritual journey. And there's something about, I think your female ancestor wants you to use divination tools more and treat them with not more respect, because I think you already do treat them with immense respect, but there's something dignified and honorable that you do spiritually that should be handled with that grace. And yeah, I just see a very refined person who is elegant and spiritual, and it's almost like this ancestor saying you don't know your power, and it's time for you to step into it. I also am noticing my shadow is here. I'm filming a little later for Pile 2 and I am here, and a song that came to my head was, except it came as shadows on the soles of her shoes, but it's Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes by Paul Simon. Yes, so another thing I'm feeling is you're about to be exposed to more elegant, refined things, something like this, and you don't see this coming, and I'm feeling kind of hesitation about it. Go in exactly as you are. Your ancestors make it clear that these spaces are lucky to have you in them. And yeah, there's something about self-confidence that's really coming through. Okay, so we're gonna look at this paradigm shift. What belief, what way of looking at life, what perspective no longer works? Why does it no longer work? What happened? And what is the new way of looking at life? So this isn't just knowledge about life, this is a completely new way of seeing things. So this is the paradigm. This is the fissure. And this is the new paradigm. Okay. I'm going to go get some crystals preemptively because these cards have a lot of nude people. Okay. I got a handful, so we'll see if they're needed. So I'm drinking Red Bull right now. It's I try not to, but some days I'm just like, wow. And sometimes I go months at a time without it, but then I just need that energy boost, or I like that kind of boost of hyperness. Yeah, all in moderation. So let's see what this perspective, what this paradigm was that you're leaving. Getting things in order before you leave. This paradigm, interesting. So we have the Queen of Cups in reverse. The Queen of Pentacles in reverse. Ooh. And the Five of Pentacles in reverse. Okay, so you have some self-sustaining tools that have allowed you to let go of comparison with other people. The paradigm that you face reminds, or the old one reminds me of social media, feeling like you had to achieve more than the next person, comparing yourself to other, like this is something particularly women deal with. We're taught to compete with each other for, or a rival, to one up, me and my friend were talking about this, how it's rare to find friends. It's not rare, but it's easy to find friends who are competitive with you, wanting to compete for really anything. And this competitive energy, this bringing other people down, this lack mindset. Okay, so this paradigm it's interestingly a lack mindset, particularly in regards to your identity, how you present to the world, really your external positioning. And I think you see through it. Oh, it's so funny. My shadow, I felt like mentioning, because these fears and this lack mentality, they are shadow elements for us. We can't help but fall into this lack mindset sometimes. But you found, like I said earlier, tools that allow you to get out of it, that allow you to have freedom from this this difficulty that a lot of people face. I think that it's really coming in here that way more people face this than you know. Way more people are really debilitated by feeling like they need to be better than the next, to prove themselves, to have value. This feels very dog eat dog. And you see right through it, you found self-respect internally. You're contained to yourself. Your value is contained to yourself and not dependent on other people's inferiority or superiority. You just feel everyone is significant and everyone matters, and there's no levels to that. So it really feels like you're done playing these games. And there's a lot to be said about that. And this female ancestor coming in is really proud of you for this. And I think they had the same experience where they were really self-actualized and didn't need these lower vibrations to feel a sense of worth. And yeah, this paradigm was you're lacking if you don't have XYZ, if you're not XYZ. And you are totally denouncing that narrative. So let's see what cracks happened. The Ten of Cups. Three of Pentacles. And the Eight of Wands in reverse. Okay, this was completely you entering a new environment where who you were as you were was accepted and loved unconditionally. And you worked with people who saw your strength as you are and affirmed you as you are. And you're around things that focused on abundance and focused on healthy perspective. So this shift comes because you go into the right environment, an environment that's very high vibrational, and it's like osmosis. It seeps into you and you're able to let go of that lower vibrational reality. So it feels like you were in an environment that was very fight or flighty, very gossipy, very incorrect is what my friend would say. And you found this higher vibrational place and you felt safe to be yourself. You felt safe to show who you were. And oh, I forgot about yeah, it's funny. You just feel like you can be your entire self. You can show all parts of you, and that's the space. It feels like for a while you thought this was all there was. But you were shown new. Okay, so I really love Leonora Carrington. She was a surrealist artist and was a big part of the surrealist movement and made dreamlike surreal pieces. And I just am really moved by her work. And she grew up in this very stifled, this is how a woman should act, this is how a man should act sort of environment. And it was so repressive, and you can see through her art, through her entire life, that she's navigating those experiences and purging that energy in her art. And what changed for her was meeting these people with these amazing ideas, with this mind that didn't see life in rigid ways, saw things as an adventure and exciting. And she worked with them as this Three of Pentacles is here. And people didn't have the beliefs that she used to be surrounded by, doing things a certain way to be appropriate, to have a good reputation, to have, yeah. It's almost as though this place embraced people as they were, these artists that she was around. And it completely took her out of that environment. It's so funny. It's like in the book, it talks about how she basically like fled that way of life, that society, and found one that really nourished her soul, really filled her up. And that's the gift you're being given in this life, is removal from that oppressive environment, removal from oppressive thoughts, oppressive rules, oppressive society. And you're finding people who are going to help you expand and see life in a different way. And yeah, this is a huge blessing. And this experience in this negative, difficult environment will be used as fuel or tools to thrive in this new environment. This experience will be used to forge your identity in a space of complete expression where you can be whoever you want to be. It gives you kind of a foundation, like I'm thinking of like a wall with support beams. Like, that's what made you, and now you get to make yourself. Does that make sense? Okay, so for the new perspective, we have 6 of Swords. Seven of Wands. Ooh. And the 4 of Cups. Okay. So, what's really cool here is you are transcending typical ways of healing. There's a lot of expression in art I'm seeing here, even if you aren't consciously aware of it, and ways of fighting difficulty that typically aren't used. You're doing a very irregular, pioneering path of reflecting, of healing, of fighting against these things. And I think people who are still caught in this reality wouldn't understand how this is your healing or your way of fighting against it. They're not able to see the perspective you see. That is, this is the way I can best heal for myself. This is the way I can best heal from these things. And I think a lot of this is passivity. I do see that you don't feel the need to come back and fight these things actively, kind of like Leonora did. Leonora really healed in her own way with her art. The 6 of Swords in reverse feels like individual healing of self, and doing it in your own way. And it does feel a little sacrificial, like you are you're actively sacrificing for this, or in this paradigm. I think you're a visionary. I think you envisioned this. These steps are the steps you are to take. And yeah, I think it's just very different than modern society, what you're doing. And there is perception against it, but you're almost happy at the negative perception because you're like, everything, I abhor everything from that. So the fact that they see it this way is kind of freeing because you don't believe what they believe. You know you're doing something right. Yeah, you're not fighting, you're going into yourself. You've realized your energy can be used in any way. And with these people, meeting these people, you want to put it into something expansive, something beautiful. Living a life that's beautiful to you. And this paradigm shift is looking at how this place wasn't healing, this situation wasn't healing. It was a constant fight, and it was completely dry. And you found water with the 10 of Cups. And yeah, I think this paradigm also is like you thought that this was how reality had to be. You were shown otherwise. And then you're able to have a new perspective on that past reality. That's what Leonora did too. She realized that it wasn't for her. Well, she felt that way her whole life. It wasn't like it dawned on her. She knew always. Okay, we're going to look at the archetype cards to see this from another perspective. So let's see what the past paradigm was. This is like how in the past you viewed this paradigm, which is like pretty meta. It's like as if this was all three. The fissure. And so this, I think, is going to be like wildly meta. So I'm sorry if it gets pretty abstract, but yeah, your paradigm shift is how you want to live your life, how you want to mold your life. You realize it's moldable. You don't have to be in these strict confines of reality. And sustaining can be so beautiful, doing what you love, living your life as if it's art. So this paradigm shift really is, how can I live my life as art? And you see other people doing it, and it inspires you. And I mean, it's such a graphic image, but I think that this past reality really imprisoned you, and you weren't sustained, and now you've reached a new way of life. So let's look at your past, how your past paradigm would view your paradigm shift. The ocean, the bridge, the offering. So this past version of you living in this would see the waters of this. I'm thinking of Virginia Woolf. She reminds me of Virginia Woolf, and the ocean reminds me of her. this feels very self-sacrificial. Choosing to go over a bridge and make this offering that you lose a lot through. That's what, honestly, this side feels like this paradigm is you looking at the loss you've had from the past. Like you've had to sacrifice it for another thing. Because of I think it's like, this was the paradigm shift before this paradigm shift. You lived in a reality where this was normal, this oppression, this rigidity, and you had a paradigm shift that it wasn't. And then you had a paradigm shift on how you wanted to live your life. And yeah, so in your past way of viewing this would totally be, I'm a martyr. This is how I have to run. I have to escape. I have to erase myself. I move away, but at what cost? And crack, the fissure that changed this paradigm was the ring and the sword. The two words that are coming to my head are freedom and pain, freedom and violence. And you realize this wasn't self-sacrificial because you became so aware of the limiting things in that environment. This is such like a random example, but say you crave freedom, you crave being on your own, like that's what makes you passionate. You are like, you watch these people from your past commit to things that are limiting them. You see they're the wrong idea, and you see the violence and the pain that happens to them in this society, and you see the passion you've gained through finding new things. You're able to understand like this, you being freed of this, and find peace in it, find hope in it. And also, I think this period conditioned you to care what people think. And this fissure of seeing things for what they are, the unhappy relationships, the self-abuse, pushing it away, or like observing it made you realize that you're so lucky. And then for your current perspective, it feels like this entire past reality is very illusionary. It was glittery. I'm thinking about how Clarissa Pinkola Estes talks about in Women Who Run with the Wolves, how the gilded carriage, like not all that glitters is gold, that glitter and easiness and all of this can be a soul trap. And I think that's really what it was. And you see it that way. And you're allowed to cut off this chapter once and for all. I think it's so clear emotionally you have moved on to this Leonora Carrington freedom, and this paradigm of realizing that you're allowed to be different and you're meant to be. It really does feel like there's going to be energy produced from this. You need to release energy about this past energy, and that can be through art, that can be through journaling, that can be through talking through it. There's so many ways, but your new reality is that you were freed. It really feels like, at an archetypal level, it feels like imprisonment and then freedom. But in some way, it feels like you snuck out of this. And I think that this whole journey is you recognizing this as that prison and not letting it continue to haunt your everyday life. You want to have, you can express, art can take it out of you. Talking, communicating. So to close, we're going to look at these tree cards. Keeper of Innocence. Leonora Carrington made a lot of art, surrealist art with horses. So that's really interesting. And like, this is a fairy, this is a weird creature. Keeper of Innocence. You're choosing innocence over cynicism. And this female ancestor that's coming in, that came in at the beginning of the reading, was in this rigid environment, and probably it feels like didn't have the same freedoms, the same ability to exist in a more free way. And she's really like rooting for you and pushing you to do this and supporting you in it. So you are totally backed by these ancestors who know that this freedom is what you deserve and where you're meant to be. And it feels like your ancestor and your soul want this to be more in the past. You might have dreams about this. It really feels like you have to get rid of this energy through writing, through talking, it's something that is pent up inside you that needs to be expressed for it to lose power over you. So one last card, it's flower cards. Oh, that's so many. Encouragement 23. Okay, this came up for pile 1. This card. You're being led to your true home. And these ancestors, butterflies, remind me of spirit guides. They are leading you there. You're being encouraged to go there. You have divine support, and you'll continue to be led this way. And you'll continue to, this will lessen its grip on you. It will continue to. And it's through more life experience, more experiencing these beautiful, freeing things. And yeah. It's almost as though that past energy is heavy and you can let it go through this expression and this innocent expression as well. I mean, look at how beautiful this is. So, yeah, pile 2, this is beautiful. This is the paradigm shift you're going through. I will see you soon. Bye. Hi, pile 3. If you chose this beautiful crystal, then this is your reading on the paradigm shift you're going through. And essentially what a paradigm shift is the old way of seeing things no longer working, something shifting your perspective into seeing life in a new way and not being able to unsee it, living from that reality now instead of the old way of seeing things. And this isn't just knowledge of the way the world operates. This is a fundamental shift in perception. So before we start, I always talk about this. This crystal reminds me of land and sea, a zoomed out perspective on the world. And last night I went and saw Neil deGrasse Tyson do a wrap up on the year and all the things that happened astronomically, the breakthroughs, and really all these exciting things. And well, I don't know why this is the first thing popping in my head, but there's this new, it's already started, but there's a space launch that is, there's a mission that's happening called the Artemis mission, where they're going back to the moon. And it's funny because Apollo, that was the original mission to the moon back in the 60s and 70s. Apollo is Artemis's brother in Greek mythology. So it's funny that this second round of going to the moon is so fun, like named after their relationship. Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about how going to the moon and these pursuits weren't just to explore. It honestly was because of the current geopolitical climate of that time and the United States wanting to get there before other countries. So I think that's interesting. So that's why we haven't really pursued more of the moon, is because there wasn't that need to win, but now everyone wants to go to the moon again, so we're back on it. So funny. Okay, so we're gonna look at your paradigm shift. The way we'll start is we'll look at the old paradigm, your old way of thinking, the crack that made you see it for what it was, and the new paradigm that you can't unsee. So let's look at what this old way of perceiving things was. This crack. We can keep that, why not? And the new way, this new paradigm. So right off the bat, okay, we have the Four of Cups on the back of the deck, which the first thing I was thinking in this paradigm shift is not mythologizing things as much and more so looking at the data. When you learn difficult facts about reality and why things happened the way they were, and overcorrecting to see life this way and losing that mythological balance of seeing life in that more beautiful perspective. So let's see what this old paradigm, Ace of Wands, Knight of Wands, the Empress in reverse. This old way of seeing things was really moving towards things based on passion, what lights you up, what moves you. and feeling like you can run towards anything and be unstoppable, and feeling like to get ahead in this world, you have to be proactive, and that's the only way people make movement. That's the only way to define success, is that forward movement, that proactive movement, going towards passion, thinking everyone goes towards this passion, everyone lives for their dreams, going after their dreams, and that there aren't ulterior reasons as well, thinking that people move towards life in the way you do. And thinking this is similar to what was coming out in another bio, but thinking your worth comes from moving and acting in this direction-based way based on what you feel led to. And losing, this is really getting worth from being a human doing rather than a human being. Your existence isn't enough. Existence wasn't enough. There had to be movement. And I think that's where you became apathetic, because this movement began to feel trivial after a while. You felt like you didn't even know what you were chasing anymore. And you lost the piece of being and the worth of being, the innate value in beauty and just existing. So let's see the crack. Yeah, even now as I'm reading this, I'm like wanting to hurry. I think that there is a level of hurrying that you've experienced. Okay, this is interesting. It feels like for so long you were active in groups, and still are active in groups that chase this doing energy, this proactiveness, and it being your norm. But the thing is I feel like rather than another group experience, like bringing you to this knowledge of another way of living, whenever you have spent quiet time with yourself, when you've been alone, when you've been living your life with this autonomous self-respect, I think you really don't need these groups outside you, or you've become stable within them. You feel that desire for a different way of movement, a different way of life. And when you're in this perspective of aloneness and feeling that soul pull, you're not as close to these things you work with, these things you do. And you're pushed. It's like you can see them and with space, with perspective, and you see what people are moving to, and you don't relate to it. You see people successful doing things. I'm seeing the King of Cups is like people going after things with a really strong drive, and maybe part of you also just feels like you should have this drive, but realizing that you are content in being in the soulfulness, in just the harmony of who you are. And when you're in that center, when you're peaceful in that. You're regulated in that. You find harmony. But there's no way to fully separate yourself from those who are off balance in that way, or they're in balance towards their dreams, but it sacrifices that soulful vision. It almost feels like you're looking at what they are aiming for, what they're running towards, and you can't see what values make them do this, what makes them really want this. You don't see the fulfillment or the soul in it. So the new paradigm, Ten of Cups, Five of Swords, Knight of Cups, and the Sun. Okay, so this is just a complete shift in values. You're no longer valuing success for success' sake or for external validation. You're valuing complete emotional fulfillment and joy, and realizing these are the things you have to fight to protect. And it's almost as though when you chase these other things, you leave these important things unguarded, and it's important that you protect them. It's interesting because it feels like kind of like DBT, like you see this way of living, you accept it, but you choose for yourself what truly matters to you. And you're allowed to live in this harmony of focusing on emotional fulfillment, on happiness, on enjoying the beauty of life, this soul food, and not getting caught up in, even in my head, it's like consumerism, capitalism, etc. And this is you really defining your values for yourself. So yeah, you're looking at the way the system runs from a bird's eye perspective, and you're seeing that what you had been prioritizing isn't what you truly value. And I think it's hard sometimes because you have to fight for this perspective of focusing on emotional fulfillment. And yeah, I think that sometimes your mind even fights it because of conditioning from society. And that this is something you actively have to fight for. So it becomes what you protect over anything. And it also feels like this past energy isn't trying to fight or hurt your emotional fulfillment as much as I think your psyche is telling you that you really have to fight for this, or that this energy is going to take it away. Because I see this emotional fulfillment, this happiness, isn't going anywhere. It's going to be there when you have focus on it, when that's what you sit in your values, what you sit in as purpose. And I think that something that really how this happened was you had to reach a certain place in society to feel safe, survival-wise, to, you had to exist within this movement-based world. And then once you were there and you were settled, you realized what truly mattered to you, because you were given the peace and the space to really think about that. So yeah, I think there it is something you really need to protect, but maybe you don't need to protect it as much as you feel. Maybe you can just live it, and you do need to protect your mind from falling back into thinking that there's a certain way to live or a certain way to exist that conflicts with your values. So let's look at the tree cards for last information. Keeper of sharing, keeper of inclusion, maybe this side of life feels like gatekeeping, not sharing, exclusivity, kind of this lack mindset. And what he really calls to you is this sharing, this inclusion, this love. And that's what your soul is trying to prioritize. I think that not having this sharing and inclusion in this one area of your life does make you feel drained soulfully. And the thing is you needed to figure out how to exist in this world that has those negative attributes. And I think that it's important that you don't blame yourself for existing in the structure we're put in. Like that's just how it is. And really it's reminding me of the wolf analogy. There's two wolves within you, a good wolf and a bad wolf, and you choose what wolf you feed. And I was thinking about this. There's this philosopher, this woman named Simone Weil. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. It's Weil. And she really believed in balance of good and bad, but she was very self-sacrificial and feeling like she needed to be a martyr to kind of achieve grace. She lost her sense of balance and felt like she had to suffer to thrive. And really, there was a balance of she could give, she could be selfless in this way, but also she needed to nourish herself, take care of herself, and that was something she didn't do. So when you look at this as like helping people, doing all these things, yes, that's so important, and you can move into that balanced place, but you have to accept that society on society's terms is what we have to experience as well. And so you're not bad for striking this balance. This is how it's meant to be. And it ruined her not having balance. So I think being aware of this balance and not judging yourself for it is big. So then we have the rose cards. Encouragement. This has come out for every pile. Wow. So life is going to continue to encourage you. I think that you feel sometimes you don't have support in this movement forward, but you're going to continue to feel pulled to it with the beauty of the world, with harmony, with happiness. You're going to see that this way of living is right and what's calling to you, and is this harmony. You don't need to achieve all these goals. You can live in this garden of flowers with the butterflies and embrace beauty and embrace the soul of the earth and existence. And yeah, so pile 3, this is a very this is a way of life shift that leads to so much more abundance and happiness, and takes you out of a lot of traps that we're conditioned to feel are necessities in life. So that's what I'm getting for you. I will see you soon.